Hey Liz,
Hey, Olu.
how was your week?
Not great, honestly. Not great.
Well, did you use ChatGPT to make important international trade decisions this week?
I did not. I did not. That's true. That is true.
Still winning.
Definitely still winning since I didn't do that. The news this week has been interesting. I don't think anyone thought this week would be as interesting as it turned out to be on Monday. Um,
Well, no, because economic policy should not be interesting.
we should all just be hearing what's happening and then just be like, cool. Instead, everyone was forced this week to basically attend economics class via social media and the news because of Trump's tariffs. Where to start with this, Olu?
Okay, well, so I guess we start at Project 2025, which is the origin of all of this and the stuff that Kamala Harris told us was going to happen, and every Democrat told the entire populace was going to happen because Republicans put this in their plan for this administration, saying that they were going to levy tariffs on all countries because America is the great big benefactor of all countries and
Hmm.
all other countries should pay money to them.
You're
And
being
that is
you're being
exactly what
polite.
happened.
You're being polite when you say benefactor. The way they phrased it was that everyone is taking advantage of us and we are being scammed by everyone, and so we need to fight back. That's how they phrased it. Because which is an interesting angle to take, considering the same people will tell you we are the richest economy, best economy, biggest, fastest, strongest, etc., etc. And yet somehow everyone around the world was taking advantage of us. Just interesting logic there. Um, I think the thing for me this week is like when the election happened last year, I said, I don't know if Olu like necessarily 100% agreed with me, but I said let Republicans cook. And we have let them cook for about 4 months, and now they're setting the whole house on fire. So maybe it's time for them to stop cooking. Just my thoughts at this point.
Well, unfortunately, they're not going to stop for the next at least 2 years. And if people don't, vote out GOP lawmakers, it's going to continue for another 4 years.
That's
So
true. That's true. It's only been
the
4 months. Can you believe that? That's
the
crazy.
kitchen is hot and there's nothing to be done for it.
There's nothing we can do. Republicans can do something. They can, right? Because they could push back on this. The people in DC, the congressional Republicans, because they have the majority, could push back, but they're choosing not to. Actually, they've been pretty quiet this week, I would say, on this issue. While everyone has been running around like their hair is on fire, Trump went golfing like nothing was going on. So, but let's talk about what happened. So, the Dow, which ordinarily I wouldn't suggest people like follow on a regular basis, but wow, this week, just wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you get when you vote against expertise, when you vote against economists, when you vote against people who actually know what they're talking about, right? Like the point of government is so that you don't necessarily have to like watch your 401k like a hawk every single day, right? The point of government is so that you don't necessarily have to know what NASDAQ does, which to be fair, I don't, because again, I am like doing my part of society and keeping that part upright, and I expect the people who are in charge to keep the economy upright, right? But because we voted for people who are also dumber than we are, and for some reason that's what people want. That's why we have to learn that if things go down 1,000 points, 2,000 points on NASDAQ, that's a very, very bad thing.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that people had before, well, not before this point fully, but up until this point, the stock market had been dropping. Last week it fell quite a bit too. Not the week with the tariffs, but the week before the tariffs and the weeks before the tariffs, when Trump first started talking about tariffs about Canada and Mexico, the stock market did fall a bit. And investors were still, I think, prior to this announcement on Tuesday, or was it Wednesday? I can't even remember. It's been a year. But prior to the announcement Trump made, it was still, there was still a sense on Wall Street, I think, that things would be reasonable and well thought out. I don't know why they have such optimism, but that was the feeling. And then the tariff announcement came out and shit hit the fan for everyone. And I want to say, like, I don't want you to think that if you're listening to this, we're talking about the stock market because it is something that we are like heavily invested in and like we have so much money that we're like, doing puts and calls and like that's not why you should care about the stock market. Not because Wall Street is upset. You should care because it affects you, a normal person, pretty seriously, actually.
Yes, because whether you're a teacher, a nurse, a firefighter, whatever it is, you have some kind of pension plan, you have some kind of retirement plan, and all retirement plans are tied to the stock market. That's just how, well, that's how it works now, where we've moved away from people actually having government-backed pensions to stock market-backed pensions. We've all been forced to invest in this economy of stock markets. And when it's volatile, that's our futures in jeopardy.
Yeah, and it's pension funds, it's 401ks. The only retirement fund that is not tied to the stock market necessarily is your Social Security, which the Republicans are trying to cut. That's a separate discussion. But it's not just like retirement stuff. It's things that might affect you more currently. You're young, you're like, I'm going to retire in 40 years. Hopefully the stock market will be back by then. My 401k or IRA or what retirement savings will be fine. Cool. But there's also things today, like if you have young kids, your college savings accounts, your 529s are probably related to the stock market. If you are in college, your college endowment that they use to pay for some scholarships and funding research is invested in the stock market. If you work at a hospital or anywhere that has a museum, a place that has an endowment, there's probably money invested in the stock market that is being trashed right now. If you work at a publicly traded company, your company, and by which I mean a company that has stock you can buy on, the exchanges, not even if you're at a desk job. This is not about corporate employees. If you are an hourly worker at Walmart, a publicly traded company, this matters because when the stock price goes down, the executives are making decisions around how to raise money to pay your salary, to give you a raise, to give you a promotion, to decide whether they want to do layoffs. Like this market is not just about a bunch of rich people in places like New York or Silicon Valley, playing around with their wealth. It does matter to the average American, and it's not always obvious how that is. And I want to say that because that is part of why there is so much concern about what has been happening. Because when investors start feeling the way they're feeling right now, things get very bad for normal people. We saw that in 2008. If you're a millennial, this is not your first rodeo. We saw that in 2020 during COVID. This is not a good thing to have Wall Street feeling like everything is going to shit.
Exactly. And alluding to what you were saying about normal people, we know that some firings have been announced in the auto industry. And actually, that's usually just Midwest states, right? That's usually
Uh-huh.
the good,
Real,
patriotic
real
American,
America.
real, exactly,
Real
thank you. Like
America.
these are the real Americans that Republicans claim to care about. Meanwhile, Stellantis is going to fire at least 900 employees, and that's not actually putting into account the additional tariffs that Trump announced this week, because they had already planned to fire these people.
Uh-huh.
Where are these plants in? They are in Warren Stampin and Sterling in Michigan. They are in Indiana. Like these are states that voted for Trump. These are people that voted for Trump. These are auto workers. These are auto union workers that voted for Trump. And they're all going to get fired. And that goes downstream, right? Like this is the one area where the shit trickles down from like the companies all the way down to the normal people. These people are going to lose their homes, right? And then their schools are going to disrepair because people stop paying property taxes. And then this is how we create decimated cities and suburbs. This is what happened in 2008, which as a millennial, I remember.
We were around for that one. Yeah, I just I really can't stress enough how what is happening to equities and the markets right now can have negative impacts for us. And it's not even just the equities and markets. It's how you feel as a consumer is also very important to the general health and security of the US economy. I don't think this is the energy and vibe and space in which people are going to be feeling comfortable making massive purchases. Even if you don't lose your job, even if you don't get, you're young, you don't have kids who need that 529 in a few years for college, you're not close to retirement, your job is secure, you're getting paid an okay salary, you live in a place where you're comfortable, even if all of those things are happening, is this a space in which you feel comfortable making large purchases? Will you be buying a new car? Will you be, selling your house, buying another one? Will you be going to the grocery store as much? These are questions you start asking yourself in this kind of environment, and that feeds into even more damage to the economy. And that's the thing that Trump is doing. These decisions he's making are not just impacting how Wall Street feels about things. It's impacting how, I hate to say the cliche, but it's impacting how Main Street feels about things. All of that is bad, very bad for the American economy. And we have been told by conservatives what Trump is doing was necessary. They will tell you, if you talk to conservatives, which I did this week because I wanted to know, how are you guys feeling about what's happening? They will tell you, like I said at the beginning, countries are taking advantage of us. That's why we needed these tariffs. They'll say we need to bring jobs back. That's why we needed these tariffs. They'll say, it's the new thing, because they weren't saying this before the election or before even 3 weeks ago. The new thing now is we need short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the new thing they're saying. They didn't tell us this before, but now all of a sudden it's like, you're going to have to suffer for a little bit. It's patriotic to suffer for a little bit for the long-term gain. None of these pieces of logic make any sense. And if you're being told that, you should feel comfortable pushing back because it's insane logic. These companies are not bringing these jobs back. Even if they bring these jobs back, they're going to be low-paying jobs. Nobody is going to pay you the same amount of money to make a pair of Nikes as they would to be a teacher. That's not going to happen. Then you talk about, what about companies? What are they going to do if they have to pay tariffs? They're going to raise the prices of things. There's no scenario in which this makes sense for middle America and normal people. And conservatives are still trying to push this narrative that this is a good thing for the economy.
Yeah, I mean, up is down and down is up, right? You've seen the videos of Fox News hosts like Harris Faulkner and Janine Pirro saying that people should be willing to sacrifice their 401ks for this great vision of a better America in the future, right? And these are capitalists through and through. They would have never, ever said that under anyone else except Trump.
Yep.
And B, these are people who are paid millions every year in their salaries, right? They don't actually need the stock market to survive. And the other thing that they're actually admitting, right? Like Harris Faulkner was comparing it to World War II and just having to like go through the pain of it. And it's like, so you're admitting that this administration is so bad and creating conditions as bad as World War II, because that's like what you're talking about. And then also to the other points that people are making, telling people not to panic buy, don't panic check your 401ks and whatever. This is all good advice, and, people should follow that. But I think what is also underlying that is that we're all just assuming that we're going to come out of this in 4 years' time and there's going to be a Democrat or somebody more reasonable to fix it, right? And we don't know that, right? We're just going on decades of Bush tanking the economy and then Obama coming around to fix it, right? We're going on the economy tanking under Trump during the pandemic and Joe Biden coming in to do everything else that he can do to prop it back up. That's what we are counting on. But we are living on an administration where they are seriously considering bringing Trump back for a third term. Okay,
Hmm.
and that's the problem. This
That is.
chaos that they are spreading, and they intend to keep it going for more than 4 years. So it's very hard to tell even reasonable people to not panic.
Yeah, I don't see a world in which, as a country that has advanced technologically, we are in an economy where we consume these products from other places. This is an arrangement that has worked for America. Now, I'm not ignoring the fact that globalization has impacted certain industries more. I remember when Obama and Hillary Clinton in various spaces said things like, the mining jobs aren't going to come back. We need to teach people how to code. That was a whole thing. I remember that. And I remember the Democrats being yelled at for saying and suggesting that some of these manufacturing, more sort of, let's say, labor-intensive jobs are not coming back to the U.S. and should not come back to the U.S. I don't think in a world of ChatGPT, which we referenced earlier, or companies like TikTok, we should be pushing our society backwards to an environment where people are, shoemakers or cobblers. No offense to cobblers. I'm really trying to be careful here because I'm not trying to shit on anyone's career. There are obviously people who still enjoy those roles, but I don't think as a society that is the direction that we should be going in. We should be moving forward with the rest of the world. We should be leading the rest of the world in advancing and innovating. It's not advancing and innovating if you convince, Wayfair to bring all their furniture back to the U.S. to be assembled in the U.S. so everyone can become a carpenter. If everyone is a carpenter, which I know right now is actually not a bad paying job, right? We actually have skilled labor in this country that does things like carpentry and shoe cobbling. And some of them get paid a lot of money because they're specialties now. But if Wayfair brings their furniture back and everyone is a carpenter, there will be no more high paychecks for the carpenters. And nobody will be getting paid because we're all carpenters. I don't think that is the direction we should be going in as a country. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And when people say make America great again, I can't believe when they voted for making America great again, I cannot believe this is what they wanted, is people's investments, people's livelihoods, people's jobs at risk, people's, retirement savings in shambles, and more to come. There is an index that tracks how the market is feeling, which is the Fear and Greed Index. And I actually checked it last week.
Is it actually called Fear and Greed?
Yes, it is.
As in greed, as in gluttony, as in props
You've
to
never
them for
heard of
being
this?
self-aware. No, I've never heard of Fear and Greed.
Oh, well, I'm glad to bring you some information. It's a way to gauge how the stock market is moving. And
Okay.
it basically, the premise is like, if there's a lot of fear in the market, stock prices go down. And if there's a lot of greed, stock prices will go up. And fear is bad. Greed is good. If you've seen.
This is the greed is good. I've actually heard of this particular slogan, like greed is good. So this
Greed
is where
is
they brought it from.
Well, I don't know if that it's related to that, but basically the way you should look at the index is greed is good. Well, not extreme greed. Greed is good, fear is bad. You need to balance it. And it's a scale from 0 to 100, with 100 being extreme greed, 0 being extreme fear. And I checked the index last week, when we were getting closer to the tariffs, and it was on a scale of 0 to 100, it was 22. This week, it's down to 4 out of 100. So extreme fear is driving the market. Do you know what it was a year ago when Biden was president?
No.
53.
Okay.
It was in a good spot. It was not too much fear, not too much greed, which is where you kind of want it to
Which
be.
is right, exactly. You want it to be right in the middle.
Yep. And extreme fear, it's a 4 right now. So I think, in that space, I can't believe this is what MAGA wanted. But I want to say for our listeners, I may actually be wrong that this is not what they wanted, because I don't know, Olu, if you've seen that other, I don't want to call it a theory because that's an insult to the word theory. Have you seen the logic that Trump is doing this to tank the economy and the stock market to give his followers a chance to buy in when they could not?
Yeah, I mean, this is what they always do, right? It's no longer even 3D chess. This is like the 12D chess that,
It is 12D
Trump
chess.
is always, playing, just this mega mind kind of galaxy brain thing that nobody can see. Like, it's ridiculous. As a church girl, this is like when they just say like God moves in mysterious ways to shut down everything. This is like Trump moves in mysterious ways.
Yes, that's true. That's what it is. It's literally people telling us that the reason he is doing these things is the reason changes depending on what Trump supporter you're talking to, but it's to force the Fed to lower interest rates. And that's funny coming from people who were concerned about inflation last year, but okay. And also to tank the stock market because, Trump followers weren't able to buy in 2008 and 2020 when there were similar like massive drops. And so now they're getting a chance. And that's what Trump is doing. He's giving everyone a chance to buy low and buy in at buy the dip. This that doesn't make sense to me personally, but as you said, this is galaxy brain thinking. I don't think that way, so maybe, there's something to it. The people at CNBC and Bloomberg and all those places seem to hope that. And honestly, we'll see, right? We'll see if there's a plan behind this. I do also want to talk about one other thing with the tariffs, because I know we're spending a lot of time on this because I told Olu earlier, before we started recording, this story frustrates me so much. It's the stupidity behind it is what has caused me to really get very upset this week. It's a self-inflicted wound for just, there's no reason. There was no reason for this. You can say whatever you like about the economy prior to Trump becoming president. You really can. You can say whatever you like about Joe Biden and his economy. You can say whatever you like about what Kamala Harris is going to do to the economy. There is no justification for what is happening right now except stupidity, in my opinion. And that's what has frustrated me about this story. And I want to talk about the math behind the tariffs because we kind of alluded to that in the intro. But have you seen the stories about how ChatGPT might have been involved?
Yes. Against my will, I had to learn the names of these AI providers, but apparently Grok and XIO, whatever these AI programs are called, somebody, asked it to provide a plan for tariffing nations, and it came up with the exact same plan, exact same formula and results as the Trump administration did. And they tried this over multiple AI platforms, and the outcome was the same. I'm not shocked by this. These are the people who have been, writing memos and misspelling things. These are the people who are DOJ attorneys who say things like we're Trump's personal lawyers, right? I am not surprised about this at all. This is the party and the administration of extreme stupidity. And they know that they are stupid, right? Because they don't have any economists who wants to go touch this with a 5 meter pole. So of
5
course
meters.
they're going to turn to Chat GPT because they don't actually have the expertise for this. They don't have the
Yeah.
range. They don't have the background. Not that
Yes.
I do, but you don't see me, trying to make trade policy, right? This is why we should this is why we should respect expertise, and we should put in people who know what the hell they're talking about.
I agree. And for those of you in America who are like 5 meters, that's unpatriotic. I looked it up. That's 16-foot pole. For those of you who are listening, I also don't know what 5 meters
Okay.
is.
5 mile pole. I don't know. Like what do
It's
y'all
it's
want?
I just want to give people context because they may think it's shorter than that. So I just wanted to help people out. But agree, there's no economist that's supporting this. And if you're wondering where all this brilliance came from, it's Peter Navarro is the person who is responsible for this. And some of you may not know this, but he is a graduate of Harvard, which I really feel like Harvard should apologize to us for some of the people they have given us as a nation. But for those of you who are like, oh, who's coming up with this? Peter Navarro is the person basically who is responsible for the Project 2025 trade section. He went to Tufts University, graduated with a bachelor's degree, and then actually got a master's of public administration from Harvard University and a PhD in economics from Harvard. And I bring that up because this is someone you should expect to know what's going on. But I don't know if you guys have heard the joke about 9 out of 10 dentists, but Peter Navarro is the 10th dentist. He is the one who tells you you can eat as much sugar as you like and don't brush your teeth and you'll be fine. That's Peter Navarro. I bet you economists around the world are like, Jesus fucking Christ. That's probably what's happening right now because this man, despite years of preparation for this moment, seems to have still resorted to ChatGPT to come up with the math for the tariffs when there is actually real and valuable information out there that he could have used to get an actual number. And because the math is bullshit, these are not reciprocal tariffs. If you're reciprocating, you would be basing your reaction or reciprocation on actual facts. They made up the tariffs they claim these other countries put against us and used those baseless fake numbers to come up with insane tariffs for certain countries and insane tariffs for everyone in general. And that is why, once again, we've seen people making jokes about how DEI was holding America together before Trump got into office. Because all of Biden's DEI hires never in their wildest dreams would have come up with this kind of trade policy. They couldn't even begin to imagine this. And yet Trump delivered this to us, and it's only month 4.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to get to the penguin jokes later, but again, these are the people who put in a country that doesn't have any human beings on it, has zero trade. It's not even a country, it's an island, right? These are not serious people. These are not people you can trust to rub 2 brain cells together. And we have always known this. And everybody out there protesting right now, like, good for you, but also like the entire population knew this. There were man on the streets interviews, and people would be like, yeah, I know he's chaotic. Yeah, I know half the time he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's just so funny. He's just so real. And this is what happens when we prioritize this kind of qualities over actual intelligence and expertise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, sure, okay, but like nobody says I want a mechanic or a doctor who I can drink a beer with. But somehow people want a president they can drink a beer with. And it's like, no, your president should actually be better than you in many, many skills, because that's what they need
That's
to
why they're
be your
president.
leader. That's why they're president,
It's it's
right?
it's it's also it's definitely that. It's also that even if your president is not an expert at things, because not everyone is going to be. I mean, I want to be realistic. Every president cannot be an economic expert or, a rocket scientist or whatever. But my belief is that the operating environment at the White House should be presidents are presented with options that make sense. They know enough to ask
Exactly.
the correct questions and check on the people who are presenting them this information and then take action. That's my requirement. That's my requirement.
Exactly. To be clear, when I say these people, I mean the entire Trump administration and the people who he surrounds himself with. Right? Because the main talent Trump seems to have is to find the clumsiest, stupidest person he can find to put in charge of something, right? Like on Biden's most demented day, right? This would never happen. He would never employ somebody who would not bother to check if the country that they are talking about has any human beings on it, right? Like, imagine anyone listening to this, imagine if you were doing a big presentation that your boss relied on you to create the, fancy laminated Excel spreadsheet bullshit that Trump brought out. And imagine if you made an error like that and embarrassed your principal, your boss, on
Mm-hmm.
the world stage like this. This is what we are dealing with, this extreme stupidity to the point of actual danger. These are the same people who can't read hurricane maps. They can't read tornado maps, right? Like, these are the people who are in charge of our lives.
And speaking of hurricane maps, they did try to go after the National Weather Service this week. This is not necessarily related, but I just want to point it out that you talked about reading hurricane maps. We may not have those anymore. So if there's no maps to read, then we'll be fine. There you go. Fix that for me,
Exactly.
Olu.
Exactly. This is what I don't get it. People are like, oh, stop having Trump derangement syndrome. How can you not? These are the people who are supposed to come help you if you're in a fire, if you're in a flood zone, if you're in an earthquake zone. And like, you can't even trust them to like evacuate you from the appropriate country, right? You can't trust them to like drop the airplanes in the appropriate region because these people don't know what they're doing. They just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't I cannot imagine being someone who put in so many years of their life into learning something and being good at that thing, and then having someone like Trump, like Peter Navarro, like, Marco Rubio, like JD Vance telling you everything you know about how things work is wrong. I am the expert, and that's why what I'm doing right now to people's lives is totally fine. And this is not just about the economists, it's doctors, it's scientists, it's lawyers, it's judges, everybody who has even the smallest amount of requires even the smallest amount of like specialization or intellectualism or like, having to learn things to be good at it is under attack in this administration. And it's being run by people who have no idea what the fuck they're doing.
Yep. I mean, just another crazy thing that happened in the last 24 hours that nobody has actually registered because of the tariff mayhem is that RFK Jr. fired thousands of healthcare workers in the HHS and then realized that, oops, I actually need those people's skills. And now he's planning to rehire them, right?
Oh,
Like,
fun. Exciting.
exactly. This is what we are dealing with, just staggering incompetence. Like, this MAGA people, their favorite word to throw around is, oh, liberals are morons. Liberals are morons. Like, but you guys are literally putting morons in charge who are admitting every single day with their decisions and their oops, that was a mistake from everything. Like, how many like just episodes of extreme stupidity have we had in the last 3 months, right? From Signalgate
Yep.
now to the tariffs and having to rely on Chat GPT to come up with your economic policy. I I I just have to stop because I feel like I'm
I know.
ranting.
It's okay. I get
It's
it. I
insane.
get it. I said today, I called it when I first heard about the tariffs. in this group chat I was in, this Discord I was in, I said the two words I used were breathtaking stupidity. That's what I said, and because that's what this is. It will literally, if you know even a little bit about how markets and trade and the economy works, and you see what's happening, you will be left breathless by how stupid this is. It's so frustrating. And but I want to say everybody is not just sort of like sitting around and letting this happen, right? This weekend, there were protests. And I'm so proud because I saw the videos from other cities. I'm on the West Coast, so ours started a little later, but I've seen videos, I've seen photos. I know Olu is excited for the penguin costumes and things that she's going to get, but I'm so proud of y'all and everyone for going out. It's really, really been great to see because sometimes when you're watching the news, it might feel like it's just you that feels away, but it's been good to see people get out there.
Absolutely. And it's, not just the usual suspects. It's not just, New York and LA and
Yes.
Boston.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing people in Montana, we're seeing people in Utah, we're seeing people in Michigan. People, even Americans abroad, Portugal are also like protesting. So, I'm glad people are doing things. Also shout out to Cory Booker who spent 25 hours plus protest speeching.
Yes.
Um, on the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, just get your Senate Democrats together and get them to vote the right way, but more power to you, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited to like see people make fun of this administration. I have moved away from like sadness and anger to just pure ridicule because I think that this is all this administration deserves, right? Because there is no way of diminishing their power than just being like, look at these fucking idiots, right? Because like we don't have the House, we don't have the Senate. We should do everything we can to put the right people in the House come midterms and in the Senate come midterms. But in the meantime, feel free to make fun of these people because they're so stupid. It cannot be stated enough how stupid they are.
Yeah, and I will say, like, one of the things that's slowly happening, because as Olu has said, Democrats, liberals in DC, there's almost nothing we can do, truly. And I stress this enough, again, as someone who paid attention in civics class, there's very little the Democrats can do. And if you're listening abroad, yes, that's literally the situation. They are locked out of every branch of government at this point. But there are small little slivers of light on the Republican side from Republican congresspeople and senators who maybe are not in seats that are safe for the midterms, because we all know it's self-preservation. I'm not trying to sell you on the story that they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts or out of patriotism. There have been some Republicans who have slowly, especially with the tariffs, have started pushing back. Republicans from states like North Carolina, states like Nebraska, which have lots and lots of farmers who depend on foreign buyers for their revenue and their livelihoods. These people are going to be negatively impacted when countries like China or the places in the EU start imposing tariffs on U.S. exports. So there are some Republicans who are pushing back, just a little. I don't want to give them too much credit, but a congressional Republican named Don Bacon said he wants to introduce a bill to reclaim Congress's authority over tariffs. And he's the first one. We don't know if this is going to work, but Congress may be, fingers crossed, waking up a little bit. And by Congress, I mean the Republicans. So who knows where we'll be in a week, y'all. I'm just saying, keep at it. Republicans need to see people in the streets. They need to understand people are mad, people are upset. They need to understand that the bullshit mandate they thought they got in November is literally the slimmest of margins, and they can be replaced next year. If they don't have that fear and concern, they are never going to push back on this guy. And we need to do more of this to make sure they are aware that they're not safe in the midterms next year if they don't do something.
Absolutely. Similarly, some Republicans joined Democrats to rescind some of the tariffs against Canada. So maybe we will see some common sense prevail. Um, to what extent remains to be seen, right?
Uh-huh.
Because in in many ways, the Republican politicians are beholden to Trump. They all know that he is going to send his rabid cult fans after them, and he is going to demonize them, and he is going to
Uh-huh.
persecute them from his bully pulpit. And none of them have learned how to stand up to him because they just leave whoever it is out to dry. Mike Johnson doesn't want to be shamed out of his speakership, right? So it remains to be seen what exactly
Uh-huh.
they can do.
Yeah, I think until seats are at risk, we won't see anything. And for seats to be at risk, it's not just the protests, right? You have to show up to vote next year. Cannot stress enough. We already saw what happened in Wisconsin this week with that Wisconsin justice winning over the conservative justice because people showed up. And in some places in Wisconsin, more people showed up for that election than they did for the presidential election in 2024. So you can do something um, beyond just the protest. And one of the biggest things you do is start sending the message now to Republican congresspeople that what they're doing is putting their seats at risk in the midterms. That's probably the only thing that will break through beyond what is happening right now, which is the protesting. I do also want to say because we're sort of like I think we're sort of like wrapping up the discussion about the tariffs and the protests, but we posted this on Threads. I want to say it here, sort of for the record. When all of this, fire and fury is over around the economy specifically and things that are happening with people's benefits and taxes, let's remember who did this. I do not want us to get into a situation where Trump is taking victory laps because, a handful of countries, let's say, decided to negotiate tariffs and he gets to get credit for the fire that he started. We should not let the arsonist who started the fire get credit for putting it out. And I know that I feel like American voters have short memories because for some reason they forgot what it was like during the first Trump term. But if we get to the midterms and Democrats win, for example, let's not forget who actually did this. Let's not forget why we're in the situation we're in. And that's a longer conversation for later, but I just want to get it out now because I feel like we will get through this and then people will forget. Let's not let people forget.
It's up to Democrats and also the press and the journalists to make sure that people don't forget, right? The last thing we want to see is all of this bipartisanship nonsense, right? The Chuck Schumers and the Pelosi's, like all of this stuff of missing the grand old party, the GOP of old. Stop that. Cut that shit out, right? And also, journalists, for the love of God, just stop with the both sidism. Stop with the we don't know. Like you do have the data and the information to inform people exactly who did what, right? Some of the things we've been seeing is people going out there putting up signs on the Biden infrastructure projects that Trump is now slapping his name on, right? Just regular schmegler people holding up signs that actually Biden did this. And unfortunately, like journalists should just be ashamed that people are having to like source their own journalism, right? Like because y'all are not informing people on who actually built their roads, on who actually funded their schools in higher numbers in America. Let's not forget that Biden and then Kamala Harris had a plan for trade schools, right? To like train men, young men mostly, and also women to like do some of these jobs that Americans are nostalgic for, right? And instead of telling people, the union workers, the people who work with their hands, these are the people who actually have a plan for you to get more jobs and increase your numbers. Everybody just ran with this thing that Trump is better for the union workers. And now union jobs in Walpole are being lost, right? Like we have to have truth and facts when we speak. And if it hurts the other side, tough luck, right? Like people like went on the CNBC show and said, if you cared about your paycheck, you would vote for Trump. Well, tell that to the federal workers who are being fired right now, right? Like you just can't say things that are not true just based on vibes.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's a good place for us to sort of segue into the next topic because I agree. The media, um, they need to do their jobs. I don't even want to say do better. They should just start with doing their actual jobs. We don't need, again, going back to 9 out of 10 dentists, if 9 out of 10 dentists agree, we don't need to hear from the 10th dentist. You know what I mean? Like that's enough for me. 90% is enough for me. There's both sides that they're doing. Doesn't make any sense. And along those lines, the lack of pushback, absolutely frustrating to me how they let people use their massive platforms and reach for PR puff pieces. And that is going to take us to our unsolicited advice for this week. We have not done this for a while, and I hope we can do more of it because I feel like there's a lot of people that need our help. Again, unsolicited help. But this week, we're going to do unsolicited advice, and our unsolicited advice is for Lauren Sanchez and her crew. I hesitate to say astronauts. Let's just say crew. Lauren Sanchez and her crew of girl bossing space explorers who were featured in an Elle magazine piece this week that I truly, I read it and I almost got sick from how like sweet and positive it was with very little pushback or questioning. I know you read it as well, Olu.
Yeah, just fawning all over this group of girl bosses, which, more power to them. But what Liz is talking about is a planned space flight, sponsored by Blue Origin, whose owner is famously Lauren Sanchez's fiance. And it includes a diverse group. And I say diverse, it is a racially diverse group of very wealthy women. The one unifying thing is that they're all very, very rich. You have Katy Perry, you have Gayle King, you have Aisha Bowie, I hope I'm saying that correctly. You have Amanda Nguyen, Carrie Ann Flynn, all going to space, essentially, doing what very wealthy men have been doing. Um, but the problem is that this is being sold as a kind of giant step for womankind. And it's like, girls, if you just want to go glamping in space, just do that, Like, why do we have to be in it?
I love that you said glamping. I want to read for the listeners what was said in this Elle magazine piece. The thing that really struck me. So a quote from Lauren Sanchez. She says, all of these women are storytellers in their own right. They're going to go up to space and be able to spread what they felt in different ways. So Lauren Sanchez says this is some big mission to get all these diverse women up to space. And they're going to be up there for, I think, about 15 minutes or so and then come back down. But it's going to be a profound moment for them, obviously. I mean, that would be interesting to do. And then they're going to come back to Earth and let us know how that went. The part that really got me was then the Elle magazine piece goes on to say, based on the statistics of women and space exploration, it's evident this representation is needed. Not only has it been over 60 years since women traveled to space without men, but women only make up about 11% of people who have ventured into space in total. And while I do appreciate that that's a fact, I'm not really clear how, as Olu said, a glamping trip to space. None of them are crewing this I guess I'll call it an aircraft. The spaceship None of them are, it's automated. So they're not going to be actually doing anything as far as like controlling the spaceship. They're not going to go on a spacewalk. They're basically going to go up really, really high to the Earth's, outside of the Earth's atmosphere and come back down, which is cool. I don't want to take away from that. But when Elle magazine is positioning it as some giant leap for womankind in space, that's where you lose me a little bit. And my own unsolicited advice is like places like Elle magazine, which I know are not like, hard hitting journalism, but you guys can do better. I expect better from you, especially if you're going to position this as something that's like pro women, especially in this economy, by the way, which is, they're rich women. We're not mad at that. I'm just pointing it out. Like, you guys really need to read the room.
I mean, it's just weird to choose to highlight this as a like Women's History Month kind of thing, right? When you just had Suni Williams come back from space after being stuck there for months and months, right? Like representation
That's
matters,
true.
yes, and you have to just be careful in who you choose to represent, right? Like I don't see any men like feeling like, oh, I have to stand for Jeff Bezos, like just because he's a man going to space, right? Like this, I just, none of this connects to me, right? Like if you want to enjoy space because
Mm-hmm.
you have the money to do it, please feel free. This is about as meaningful to me as announcing that you're going on a submarine or a yacht. It's like, okay, fine, enjoy yourselves. But why your
Mm.
publicist has to like blast out all these puff pieces like you're doing something for all women is just confuses me.
It is confusing to me as well. And I want to say, please don't go on any submarines. My general sense is that space travel is safer than submarine travel. I may be wrong, and you'll notice me admitting that I don't know a lot about either one. So I don't know which one is safer, but I actually would feel way more comfortable in space than in a submarine. Just FYI, if anyone wants to buy me tickets for either one. Um, but yeah, I think that's our unsolicited advice is like media do better. Stop positioning things as like girl bossing. Just do you. If you're a rich lady and you want to do stuff, do it. Stop trying to make it like it's for the rest of us.
Thank you for listening to us this week. We have been Olu and Liz. If you enjoyed listening to us, please do share with family and friends. In the meantime, you can find all of our previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and liberbanter.com. See you next week. Bye for now.